and welcome to episode 3 of Shift with Maddie. My name is Maddie, obviously, and I am your host. Now, I started this podcast 3 weeks ago, so she's a fresh one, she's a fresh baby. And the reason I created this podcast is that 3 years ago, I had everything that you were meant to have at my age. I had the job, I had my house, I had my social group, I had money, I had all the things that people would look at usually and say, she's doing well for herself. But I just felt a bit stuck. I just felt like I wasn't living the life that I wanted to live. And so I made quite a drastic decision to quit my job, sell my house, and move to Australia. And I've spent the last 2.5 years in Australia really working on becoming the person that I want to be. And what I've learned is that I didn't have to change that much, if I'm honest. There were so many things that I loved about myself. But there were certain things that I wanted to focus on. And by making small tweaks to my life and really challenging my mindset around certain areas, I have created so many opportunities for myself that I didn't think were possible for me 3 years ago. And so I want to be talking to women now who are feeling a little bit stuck in their lives, feeling a little bit like they're not living their purpose, and for them to know, firstly, they're not alone. Most of my friends that I speak to go through this stage. But secondly, that they are totally capable of changing their lives by keeping the bits that they love and focusing on the bits that they don't. So today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the way that we talk to and about ourselves. The use of self-talk and the use of language is something that I find so interesting, and is actually one of the biggest tools that I use to challenge my own limiting beliefs, to empower myself, and to really actually change the outcome of my life. By the end of this episode, I'm hoping that you'll firstly realize how important self-talk is, because it can get a little bit of a woo-woo rep sometimes, like, oh, you just have to be nice to yourself. No, there is science behind this, bitch, and I'm gonna tell you what it is. But also, I'm going to give you some really practical phrases that you can look out for. And because positive self-talk is such a broad topic that you can't cover it all in one episode. Like, you could have a whole series on this. So I'm going to give you some really specific words that I look out for in my own vocabulary that have really helped me challenge and transform my life. And really, the theme of the day is around agency and around accountability. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from today, it is that the language that we use to describe ourselves, our situation, our feelings, our thoughts, it's not just describing, it's dictating. It is forming our lives. It's not that we are just using language as a byproduct to describe what's happening to us. Our use of language actually has the power to change what happens in our lives. So, without further ado, I'm going to get on to the episode. I'm actually going to start with a couple of psychological studies that I found really interesting. And it's about different languages and the way that just the way languages are formed can change the way that people think. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is probably the thing that first got me so interested in how language can impact the way that we see the world. Now, I remember hearing, and I actually looked this up, so I've got the psychological study to back it as well, but I remember hearing that there are some languages, such as English, where we really put agency onto people in order to dictate how something happened. So an example of that would be if I were to take this cup and drop it. If someone watched that and they spoke in English, they would say, she dropped the cup. Maddie dropped the cup. Whereas in some languages, such as Japanese and Spanish, the translation of what happened would more accurately be, the cup was dropped. So it doesn't allocate blame to that person in the way that they're describing it. And there was a really interesting study, and I've actually printed it out because I'm really shit with names. I'm never going to remember the names of the people who did these studies, so my trusty bit of paper will. And there was a study called the Blame Study, and it was by Forsey and Boritsky. Hope I said that right. And basically what they did is they had a study where a load of people who were native English speakers versus people who were native, I think it was Japanese speakers, watched a load of videos of people accidentally popping a balloon, accidentally knocking over a vase, accidentally spilling water. And they were asked to describe the situation. People who spoke in English were likely to say, he dropped the vase, he spilt the water, she popped the balloon. Whereas people who spoke Japanese were likely to say, the balloon was popped, the water was spilled, etc. The really interesting thing from this is that when they were given a random memory test later, the people who spoke English were more likely to allocate blame and to remember who was responsible for the event that happened than the people who spoke in Japanese. So just by the way that we speak about an event, it will instantly allocate agency to someone just from the way that we speak. And there have been really interesting studies about other languages as well. So for example, there's a Chinese language study, and again, I've got the name in front of me, Keith Chen. He did a linguistic savings hypothesis. So basically, there are some languages, such as English, where people use futured tense. So for example, if the weather's looking shit tomorrow on the weather forecast, which it usually does in the UK, let's be real, then we are likely to say in English, it will rain tomorrow. It's going to rain tomorrow. Whereas in languages such as Mandarin, there's less of a future gap. So they call it futureless. It's more like it rain tomorrow. So the word will isn't in there. And some really interesting figures came out in this study for people who spoke Mandarin and had less of a linguistic gap between the future and the present. I'm going to give you some figures right now. They were 30% more likely to have saved money in a given year, 25% more wealth at retirement. They smoked less, they were less likely to be obese and more likely to use protection because, you know, we always advocate for safe sex. So the theory is that if your language makes the future feel distant, you're less likely to take action now. Now, it is worth saying with obviously these studies, it's always correlations. You can't really have a causal effect, but it's so interesting that there is so many studies to show that just the way that we talk about something changes our actual behavior and our outcomes in our lives. And you might be thinking, Maddie, this is really interesting, but why are you talking about Japanese and Chinese, etc.? Why is this important? Well, because it leads nicely on to the next part of the episode, which is all about the way that we talk to ourselves and how our own language and the way that we talk actually impacts our behavior and our reality. I could talk about language a lot. I really, really like the topic, but this is only one episode and you ain't gonna sit here listening to me for hours talking about language. So I'm gonna keep it limited to language that takes away our accountability and our agency and disempowering language. That's kind of the theme of what I'm about to talk about now. I'm gonna tell you about 5 phrases which I think really, really changed my mindset and really helped me to start not only using language as a tool to understand myself, but as a way to start actively changing my behavior and my life. I will make one comment before I go on to that, and that is that positive self-talk as a whole is so important. I think if you start anywhere, start by challenging when you're being a real dick to yourself. We are our own worst critics. Like, no one is as mean to us as we are to ourselves. If my best friend were to come to me right now and say, oh, Maddie, I messed this up, or oh, I was meant to do this today and I didn't get round to it, or oh, I didn't do very well in this test, the last thing I would say to her is, yeah, it's because you're fucking useless. It's because you're really lazy. It's because you should have worked harder. It's because that you can't do anything because you're really bad at it. I would never say that to my best friend. And if we don't say it to our best friend, why on earth do we think it's okay to say it to ourselves? We have to spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with ourselves, and even if we have all of the positive actions in the world, if we have someone in our head constantly telling us that we're shit and lazy, how are we ever gonna get through life? So I will just have that as a little preface that as a whole, just try and be nicer to yourself, girlie. You are a strong, independent woman and you deserve the self-compassion. So I'm just gonna put that as a little sprinkle, maybe a little teaser of another episode. But I am now gonna move on to my 5 statements and things that you can start thinking about that might even start changing the way you think today. Without further ado, number 1 is the words I can't. The words I can't are 2 of the most disempowering words in the English dictionary, I am convinced. And again, like I said, this is all coming from words that I have challenged myself on. So I'm not telling you to do something that I don't do myself. I check myself on this every single day. But usually when we use the word I can't, it's not actually something that we physically can't do. It will be something like, oh, I can't make it to that event. Oh, I can't meet you for this today. Oh, I can't get that done today. And what we're really saying is, I'm choosing to not do this today. I'm not prioritizing this today. I don't want to do this today. And even though it feels a little bit more uncomfortable to say, especially for people who have people-pleasing tendencies, it's me. I'm the people pleaser. Honestly, for people pleasers, saying I don't want to instead of I can't can be so intimidating, because when you say I can't, it's removing a layer of accountability. It's almost saying, oh, I wish I could, but unfortunately there are circumstances outside of my control that mean that I can't do this. Whereas actually just learning to take a bit of accountability, even though it feels uncomfortable, and saying I don't want to, or I'm not prioritizing this, or I am choosing not to. That can really build self-trust, because you start to take accountability for your own actions. So that's one that I really catch myself on when I'm saying it. Number 2 is a really psychology-backed one. And if you've ever done therapy before, which by the way, I absolutely recommend. I fucking love therapy, man. I love therapy. If you've ever done therapy before, it's likely that you will have been told to separate your thoughts and your feelings. And that is one that I really, really catch myself on when I'm saying it. So an example of that would be, I feel like you're mad at me. I feel like you're mad at me. That's not a feeling. That's a thought. And you might be like, well, that's just petty, Maddie. Why are you calling us out on that? Well, actually, there's a reason. A thought and a feeling are stored in two very different parts of your body. A thought is something that can be challenged, but a feeling is energy and motion. A feeling is something that's talking directly to your beliefs, directly to your subconscious. And it's a lot harder to address a feeling. You can't outthink a feeling, but you can challenge a thought. So by saying, I feel like you're mad at me, what you're actually saying is, because I've done something wrong, because I'm a bad friend, because I've done this X, Y, Z. And it becomes really messy and really personal. Whereas as soon as you just change that one word and say, I think that you're mad at me, do you notice how immediately that removes that situation? Immediately it makes it more logical. Immediately you can start to challenge that and say, am I right? Or, but maybe this is what's happened. Or, that might be wrong. Just by challenging feeling versus thought, you are removing something from your identity and dealing with a situation in isolation. And I find that such a helpful tool, especially when I'm feeling overwhelmed or if something's really upsetting me. And like I said, this is massively psychologically backed. It's the basis of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the biggest therapies used across the world. So this one is one to start challenging today. It's such a good tool. The third one, and if my sister is listening to this, she's going to be pulling her hair out, because the third one is, people can't make you feel something. Now, I remember when I was little, me and my sister would be arguing like sisters do. I'd be winding her up. She'd say, Maddie, you're making me feel sad, or you're making me angry. And I'd say, I can't make you feel anything. Now, don't get me wrong. Was I saying it to wind up my sister and be a bit of a dick? Yes. Yes, I was. However, the basis of what I knew then sticks even now. And it's one that I'm really, really conscious of. Because it's true. People cannot make you feel something. Your emotions can be influenced by other people, but ultimately you have agency over your own feelings. And so an example of this would be someone saying, you're making me feel guilty. You're making me feel guilty. No one can make you feel guilty. Really what you're saying there is, I feel guilty because of what you just said. That's a completely different thing. You're making me feel is giving that person the power to influence your emotions and your thoughts. That is taking your agency away and giving it to someone else. That is so disempowering. As soon as you say, I feel guilty, agency, because of what you just said, trigger, you can start to challenge that. You can firstly, obviously, accept the emotion, because there is no point trying to push an emotion down. If something is coming up, then it is totally valid, and you need to be kind to yourself about that, which is, again, another thing I've learned, another episode, holding space for emotions. But also you can start to challenge it, and you can start to understand why you feel guilty. Because it's really easy to say, well, no, I feel guilty because she said that. But actually, you're feeling guilty because of something that you think you've done wrong. Emotions come up from a place of your truth. Whether that is correct or not, whether it's the actual truth or not, is up for you to decipher and up for you to challenge. But you don't feel something unless there's a part of you that holds it true. And so you can then start to challenge and you can say, am I feeling guilty because I've actually done something that is against my values and I want to apologize and make amends? Or am I feeling guilty because of a wound that might need tending to? Is this something that I can learn about myself? And just by doing that, you are taking back so much power into your own hands. And I just love that as a tool, not to blame people, not to say, oh, so they were being horrible to me and suddenly it's my fault. No. But what you're saying is, I own my emotions. My emotions are part of me. And by taking that power back, it then gives you the freedom to be able to explore that further. The fourth one is a little bit of a witchy woo-woo one. And I don't have any psychology backing for this, so I'm going to go over it quickly. But it's one that I've really put into my own life. And it's the words, I don't believe. I can't believe. Now, we're kind of conditioned to say this as a way of expressing gratitude. So be like, I can't believe I just won that tenner on the scratch card. I can't believe I just got that parking space. I can't believe I got that promotion. It's kind of a way of us saying, wow, that's so cool that that happened. But what we're actually saying, if you look at it from a subconscious point of view, a subconscious that doesn't understand the difference between nuance and past, present, future, it's not logical. All that's saying is, I don't have that, or I don't deserve that. So one really specific example I can remember is something really cool happened to me a couple of years ago. I won an all expenses paid, wow, tongue twister, send help. An all expenses paid trip, there we go, to Japan. And it was hands down one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. I basically entered an Instagram competition for a pole dance retreat. And it was one of those where it was like, tag a friend and share to your story. The ones that we all enter and we're like, I'll never see that again. Well, I woke up the next day to a notification saying, congratulations to our winner, Maddie. And I was like, what the fuck? So cool. Like, how? I'm sorry. When does that happen? Like, when does that happen? That was so cool. But what I realized is the first thing I said when I was starting to tell people was, I can't believe I've won this. I can't believe this has happened. And I had to stop myself and be like, well, why is that? Why can't you believe it? Why are you telling yourself this? Because really, by saying I can't believe, to me, what that's saying is I don't deserve. Because if you can't believe something to be true, then for some reason you're believing that it shouldn't be yours. And most of what I'm doing at the minute is based on self-worth and self-trust and believing that I deserve the good things that happen to me. So why would I then say, oh, I can't believe it? That's directly going against self-worth and self-trust. So that's just a little one I wanted to throw in there in case that resonates with you. Take it or leave it, up to you. And the last one is something I kind of notice in other people more than myself, if I'm being totally honest. And I'm quite a positive person, so I really notice people's responses to when I say, how are you? Or, oh, how's your day going? And I'm not talking about talking to your best friend where they're like, it's fucking shit, Maddie, hate my life. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like your automatic response to someone where you are not there to get any sort of response from it. For example, someone at the coffee shop or a colleague, you know, when you see someone in the kitchen, you're like, oh, how's your day going? Is your automatic response, good, thanks, how's yours? Or is it, oh, you know, plodding along, oh, you know, surviving, oh, you know, it's all right, isn't it? Like, what energy do you automatically give a room without even thinking about it? Because if you are automatically giving out a negative energy, oh yeah, it's another day, innit? Oh, another day, another dollar. What sort of energy are you giving to yourself all of the time? Like, if that's the environment that you automatically create just when someone asks how you are, if that's where your mind automatically goes, then what's going around in there the rest of the time? So that's just one to be super aware of. And I really notice when I'm in a room with someone who's negative. And this isn't about someone being upset and telling you their problems. This is a completely different thing. In fact, I'm actually a chronic oversharer. In case you haven't told, I've just started a podcast where I'm chronically oversharing. But if someone says to me, oh, how's your day? And I've actually had a shit day, I will respond saying, you know what, actually today's been a bit of a struggle. I did this and that, and this one's actually been a bit rough. I will actually go into it like, did they ask for that? No. Am I going to tell them anyway? Yes, I am. Sorry about that, Debbie, but you get my life story now. But if you are automatically negative in the way that you talk and the way that you refer to your life, then just think about how that might be playing out in the rest of your life as well, and maybe start to challenge it. Like if you notice you're one of these people, which is totally fair, just try, oh yeah, good thanks, emphasize, and see if it makes a difference to how you're feeling. And so there you have it. That is my episode on language and accountability. And like I said earlier, language is such a massive topic, and I'm definitely going to do future episodes on different areas. But what I really hope you got from today is that the way that we talk about ourselves and the way that we communicate and the language and the words that we choose to use can impact the control that we perceive we have on our lives. And if we perceive that we're completely out of control, or we perceive that someone else is responsible for our actions, or our actions aren't within our own grasp, then that's going to start to impact the way that we show up in the world. But what I noticed is that as soon as I started to use language where I was taking agency over my own actions, even though it was uncomfortable at first, I started to realize that I trusted myself more, that I was more willing to take action in areas that I might not have taken action before, and that I actually really started to challenge some of those beliefs that can really hide in passive language. Things like, do I deserve this? Am I worthy of this? Is this a wound that needs uncovering? As soon as you take agency for your language, those limiting beliefs can't really hide anymore, because you have to kind of face them where they're at. And it was such a huge tool for me, not only to just feel better in day-to-day life, but to start to really challenge some of the identity blocks that have been keeping me stuck in so many areas of my life so far. So I hope that what you got from this today is not, you need to change the way you're talking, bitch, but really that the more we can take responsibility for the things that we do, the more powerful we're going to feel in our own lives. And that is going to help to lead to higher self-trust and more self-compassion and more confidence to take the next steps, so that we can actually start to change our goddamn lives. Woo! Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Send to a friend. I actually looked at my statistics and I'm so excited because 18 people have downloaded my first episode, 13 people have downloaded my second episode, and I'd love to know who you are. Like, if you are listening to this and you're finding this really helpful, or if there's anything you've taken from this, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Like I said, I want to be part of this journey together. I'm currently in the process of changing my life. I'm currently living at my mum's house and just starting something for myself. So I'm hardly preaching from a mountaintop. I'm just telling you the things that have actually genuinely helped me, in the hope that some of it might help you. And you might actually take some things away from the episodes and say, oh, actually, I could start doing that. Or maybe I could think about this. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you if you're listening to this right now. And next week I will be back with another episode. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will catch up with you next week. Goodbye for now.